In 2018, the World Health Organization provided statistics showing that 5.3 million children died from malnutrition. This equates to roughly 15,000 children per day. Some of the causes of malnutrition are linked to poverty, infection, and lack of sanitation. So in the past, I have done charity events and I've ran a couple foundations which helped malnourished children in Africa. One of the charities that stuck out in my mind was to help build, the foundation was to help build a fish pond in Uganda, and that way the future generations could have a sustainable food source. So, although poverty and infection and malnutrition is a growing problem, there are many ways that individuals and government agencies can help to mitigate the problem of malnutrition. Sanitation is a major problem through developing countries. E. coli is prevalent through a lot of the water sources that are in these regions such as sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. The areas such as these, they don't have the facilities that we have in America. We think about hand washing and the availability of water. These countries don't have that availability. In fact, some of the children you can see in this picture, they don't have the option of going to a water fountain or buying Fiji water or going to the grocery store and choosing their own water source. And one problem with the unsanitary conditions, as you can see, is it creates a lot of infections such as cholera and dysentery, and this contributes to a lot of death throughout these countries. In 2017, there was actually a study done that showed 827,000 deaths occurred from unsanitary conditions. There are a couple of physical symptoms that are associated with malnutrition as well. You can see the hungry children here. This is actually a picture from Ghana. Physical symptoms associated with malnutrition. You can see this poor boy's ribs. There's a condition known as wasting, which is the atrophy of muscle mass and deterioration of his limbs, and you can see his stomach area is a little outset from his body. This is a condition known as kwashiorkor, and what happens is it's a accumulation of fluid, and that's from not getting the proper nutrition. This boy is about 5 years old, and the World Health Organization statistics targets children from infancy up to 5 years old are the most affected by malnutrition. Stunting is another common condition that you see here. Stunting is a failure to grow in a linear direction. Again, that's from improper nutrition and just chronic illness. There are a couple physical mechanisms that help us protect our bodies. There's what's called an epithelial barrier. And what the epithelial barrier does, it's a block between the small intestine and the immune system that underlies this barrier. And when you're malnourished, you don't have the ability to get the correct amount of nutrients, and the barrier, it starts to deteriorate. So what happens is the intestines, some of the contents will spill out into the immune system, and then you have your whole immune system, your lymph nodes all throughout your body, so it causes infection all throughout the body. Vitamin A is another micronutrient that is very important in the diet, and it helps in immunity. So we talked about the unsanitary conditions and how bacteria could be prevalent, and when you don't get enough vitamin A, your body will not have the ability to fight off infection. So if you come across the unfortunate circumstance where either E. coli or Salmonella or Shigella, if you encounter any of these bacteria, you won't have the proper nutrients, and your biological processes will not be working correctly. Diarrhea is also another common problem with areas in these developing countries, such as, again, in Africa and Asia, have a high prevalence. When you're malnourished, I keep repeating, but you don't get the correct nutrients that you need, and when you go to the bathroom, you excrete all the necessary nutrients, and it contributes to, again, the wasting and the stunting that you see here, the physical deformities that are associated with malnutrition. World Health Organization, on a happier note, is doing a couple things to improve the conditions for these children. They have set guidelines for sanitary conditions. They are setting up different hospitals and facilities and headquarters in places such as Africa, in Ghana, in Guinea-Bissau, in Nigeria. And with the facilities being there, they're trying to improve and help educate the doctors and nurses. There's actually a study done that shows, unfortunately, about 50% of deaths from chronic illness come from uneducated or lack of education from the part of doctors and nurses. They don't have the resources that we have up here. You think about how long doctors go to school. It's like 8, 10, 12 years that they spend studying all these medical terms and conditions and underlying causes. Unfortunately, they don't have that in Africa. They don't have that in Asia. In these developing countries, they lack the education that we have here. So by putting the hospitals and educational facilities, they can better help these children. There are also volunteer organizations and individual volunteers who can go down to these areas and they can help vaccinate these children, helping stop infection, even prevent infection before it happens. We talked about being malnourished. When you're malnourished, you don't have your ability to fight infection is diminished. So by getting vaccinated, you're preventing the infection from even starting. So monetary foundations are also very, very helpful. A couple dollars goes a very, very long way. Another way that organizations like the United Nations are helping, they're providing these technologies that help provide sanitation methods. For example, they are using a mesh cloth to siphon the water out and filter all the contaminated bacterias and waters, and that helps improve living conditions. And the picture you saw, it will help children and families have access to clean water. So, in conclusion, monetary funds can really, really help, whether they be from government agencies or from individuals. So, when we talked about the 5.3 million deaths from malnutrition and infection and poverty, this vicious cycle with one factor contributing to another, poverty, you're not going to have enough money to buy food, and if you're malnourished, you're more susceptible to infection, and if you're infected, then you can't work, so you're subject to more poverty because you can't work. So unfortunately, this is a vicious cycle that can be helped. $210 will help buy livestock for a family. By buying livestock, they can start to understand and get the resources they need for future generations. $100 donation will give you vaccinations for a child for a year. $40 will provide a child with severe acute malnutrition with what's called peanut butter paste, which helps increase the amount of protein, which helps with all the micronutrients that you need to sustain life. If you add these three things together, that's less than $1 a day. It equates to 95 cents. For that low amount, you can help change the lives of many. Thank you.